I'm going to talk about Windows Forms. How many people out there have used Windows Forms, either 1.0 or 1.1? Excellent. It's good to see. How many people haven't? Okay, a few. I'm just going to say, pretty much today what I'm doing is demos of our new features in 2005. And I think most of you should have the CD, the Technology Preview CD. Everything I'm showing today is on that CD. The only words I want to say is I just want to quickly kind of describe Windows Forms for some people who may not be as familiar with it. I had somebody stop by the booth downstairs 2 days ago, and they said, you know, what is Windows Forms and when do I want to use it? And so I kind of explained to them that it's about client technology and being able to leverage the PC or the operating system rather than web development technology like ASP.NET, which basically can leverage what the browser provides for you. And they said, okay, I get that. I said, so what kind of applications would I develop? And I said, well, if you're developing, say, something like Office or Money, I said, and you want to use it, develop it using managed code, you'd use Windows Forms. And he kind of had this blank expression, looked at me and he goes, but I thought I'd use something lower level. And I'm like, maybe we're getting out the wrong message, but Windows Forms is what you'd use for those types of applications. Maybe if you're going to go play in the Unreal tournament and you wanted something to do a new engine for Unreal, you probably wouldn't use Windows Forms. But if you're developing any other kind of client application, Windows Forms is what you should be using. And I'm going to show you some of the things that we've done in the new version of Windows Forms to make it much easier to develop really nice, polished, professional-looking applications. So I'm going to start, just give a quick overview of our goals. And I've really got sort of 2 slides I'm going to touch on here, and then it's just demo, 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 demo. I'm going to talk about our new features, and I'm going to finish up by talking quickly about deployment. There is another deployment talk, or a full deployment talk on Friday given by Jamie Cool at 9:15. If you're really interested in click once in deployment, I suggest you attend that talk. So really focused on 3 main things. The first being deployment. We wanted to make it as easy to deploy client applications, client as in Windows Forms applications. We want to make that as easy as it is to deploy web pages or web applications. So now for a web application, you shove it out on a server, everybody can hit it. We've done the same thing for client applications. You can stick it out on a web server, and everybody can go ahead and download it from there, and we go ahead and take care of the install for you. And I'll show you a demonstration of that later. We want to make it easier to build professional-looking applications. Key thing. I'm not going to talk to this because I'm going to show it. And the last thing also, I'm going to talk to this as well. We want to make it easier to develop client applications within the IDE. So I've got one control highlighted on here. How many people missed the mask edit control if they're from a VB6 days? A few people. So we've added that back in. That's the only control up here I'm not going to demo. So everything else, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to skip, and I'm going to show it to you in the context of a demonstration. Same thing here. I'm going to show everything at the top. The bottom, I just want to touch a couple things. We've improved our printing API. We've made it much easier for you to create controls if you're a control author that expose the basically expose themselves to theming or are capable of being themed. And we've done a lot of enhancements to our existing controls. This is really a 2.0 version. We've done a lot of enhancements, many more than I could actually go over in this 1-hour talk. So with that, I'm going to get right to a demo. So first thing I want to show, I've got a Visual Studio 2005 here. I've got a basic application here. I've just got a form that's maximized, nothing on it. And I kind of want to show what our experience would be like to start going about developing a client or a Windows Forms application. So one of the things that we've added in this version is we've added my screen up here is really bleached out. Excuse me, it's kind of tough to see. I hope. Can everybody see that okay back there? Good. So we've added a new menu and toolbar control. We had an existing menu control and we had an existing toolbar control, but they were based on underlying Win32 controls and they weren't as flexible as we wanted. We wanted to be able to give people the capability to develop applications that are like Office or like Visual Studio that have those professional looking menus. Now one of the things that I'm going to do right off the bat is I'm going to pop up our new Smart Task that you see here on the right. And this is one of the things we did to make it easier to develop applications within the Visual Studio environment. We took common operations you do on controls and we exposed them directly off the control. So you don't have to go navigate through the property grid. You don't have to try to right click. You can just easily find it. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and insert standard items. And that's going to go ahead and insert right off the bat some standard items that you might have if you're going to add a menu bar to your application. So without writing any code so far, I quickly have a simple, nice-looking menu, and I'm going to do the same thing with our tool strip control. And I'm going to go ahead and insert standard items on this as well. And I'm going to go ahead and run the application, just all within the designer. And you'll see our default look and feel here for a Windows Forms application is we have an Office-like look and feel. That we have our menus that can expose themselves as with an Office-type look and feel with Office-type capabilities. So this is out of the box. I can do the standard docking on the different sides. So just standard capabilities that a lot of people want in applications that we didn't have in existing versions of Windows Forms that we now have. Now, one thing I'd like to do is go ahead and I'm going to be a little risky. I'm disconnected here, but I'm going to bring up my version of Outlook here with my real inbox. So we'll try to find something like schedule, maybe, something not harmful in here, just to show you what the menus and toolbars look like in Outlook. And one of the things, we didn't go through and we say, we don't want to make it so that everybody has to build an Outlook-looking app. We wanted to make sure that you could build an Outlook-looking app if you wanted to. So Outlook has got these nice-looking toolbars and menu bars, which we now support. And I want to show you how you'd go about actually in the designer, rather than what I just did was insert standard items, how you'd build a menu like this within the IDE. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to get rid of the existing toolbar and go ahead and add a new one. And directly in situ within the designer, I can go ahead and type new to create a new item. Directly on the item, I can go ahead and give it an image. In this case, I'm going to select new one. I can also change the type. In this case, I want what's called a split button, and that gives me that Outlook type drop-down button, so directly within the designer here. And then I can go ahead and add new items. At mail message, and so you can see, it's pretty easy. I can go ahead and do that same trick of adding an image right here in the designer. I can add a shortcut key right in the designer, but you get the experience is that right within the designer, I can easily create these very professional looking menus. So rather than take the next 20 minutes to actually fill out a full Office type menu or an Outlook type menu, I'm going to go ahead and in typical Martha Stewart fashion or Julia Child fashion, I've already created one. You can see within the designer, I just did the same thing I just showed you and created a full Outlook looking menu and toolbar, including a status strip at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and run it, just show you a couple other capabilities we have. So you saw how we could dock to the bottom and top, but also we have just the standard functionality that you would expect from these type of menus. For example, we have the overflow capability. It's configurable what gets overflown, but as I grow and shrink the menus, we go ahead and add things to the overflow area. So just very typical of what you would be able to what you expect from these type of menus. Obviously, you can do things like combo boxes and text boxes directly in the menu. You can dock things or anchor them off to the right-hand side, which I have here. So it's very easy within the designer to set up this sort of a menu structure. So we realized, too, that building something, a professional type application, in the case of Outlook, isn't just about the menus and toolbars. We did address that, but if you look at Outlook, it's got this, some nice little header areas here. It's got a tree view control here. It's got a nice little stack view down here, a nice little view type arrangement in here with sort of a message preview. And over here, it's got a rich type HTML display. Well, we have those same sets of controls in Windows Forms. And what I've done is I've gone ahead and at design time created some user controls. And user controls in Windows Forms, those are just the way that you can create reusable components. And I've created a few of those to do these other views that you see in Outlook. So here you go. This is just our standard tree view control, and I'm taking advantage of some new enhancements we did to the tree view control to allow me to do bolding and multicolor text. I've got a message list here. This is a new data grid control, which I'll talk about later on in the talk. You don't see any data in it now. It's actually data bound, but I've actually formatted this to look like the Outlook message preview area. I've got a nice little message view here, which at the bottom here has a web browser control that we now ship with, and I'll talk a little bit more about later. But here you're just looking at, again, off-the-shelf Widby components to do the message preview area you see in Outlook 2003. And finally, I have this little stack view off on the left. And what this is, just our new menu and toolbar components are extremely configurable. What I've done here is I've just arranged them in a stack type view and set them up to be like a checkbox, which simulates the Outlook type behavior. So you can see I can create these user components. And now I can go ahead and go back to our main view. And one nice thing about Visual Studio 2005 is that when you create user controls, they get automatically added to your project in your toolbox. So these components over here, I actually can drag them directly on from the toolbox now. So I'm going to go ahead and drag these components over to create an Outlook-looking application. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag over a couple splitter containers. And this is a new splitter control that we have added in 2005. And there we go. It's tough to grab on my, with this display up here, it's tough to see it. So this is just a replacement to our old splitter control. We still have the old one, but this was just a lot more natural to use. And I'm going to go ahead and drag another one over here. And see if we can resize this one. Get on, there we go. And this is to simulate the 3 different areas that you see in Outlook. I'm going to go ahead and now drag over a couple tool strips. And the stack view that I showed you earlier and the folder view. And I'm going to go ahead and set up some text on these guys. So I want to go ahead and give that mail, and this one all mail folders. And you notice I'm doing this all in the designer. Small icons there, that's looking pretty good. We'll go ahead and drag another one of these tool strips over, and we'll give this one the title of inbox. And now we'll go ahead and drag over our other components that I created. The message list, bang, message view, bang, there, that's looking good. All in the designer, all at design time. Try doing this with the previous version of Windows Forms. Go ahead and run it. And you'll see as it pops up, you'll see a very Outlook-esque looking application. Complete with splitters. It's got the multi-view over here. I can drag the toolbar around just like you would be able to expect to be able to do. I got a web browser control over here, displaying the different, basically rich HTML content over on the right. This is all done within the design time environment. The amount of code that it took me to write this whole application outside the designer was about 100 lines of code. This happens to be written in C#. I can do it in either C# or VB. This is a complete design time experience right here. So we've really done a lot of work to make building these types of applications much simpler in this version of Visual Studio. So with that, a quick demo of building professional applications. I'm going to talk about some design time features next that we've done. Really 2 different areas. Some of the things that we've done in the designer to make it easier to build applications at design time. And then I'm going to talk about some of our layout features. And I'm not going to take time on these slides again because I'm going to demo everything that I'm talking about in these slides. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and kick back to another demo. Open a new project. So I've got 2 of the projects I'm working with today are written in C#, one's in VB. Here you see I'm going to go ahead and run an application. And if you look at it, you're going to say, I'm not a visual designer, I have to admit. It looks a little washed out, doesn't look very good. This is our default look and feel. This is the professional look and feel. We support in our toolbars and our menus, we support being able to look like Office, and we also support being able to look like the system, like IE. Well, in this case, it doesn't seem to be working for me. And we've taken a great deal of effort in making our toolbars and menu bars configurable. So in the case of this application, what I'd really like to do is I would like to plug in my own renderer. In other words, I'm going to customize the look and feel of the menu bars and the toolbars. And I'm going to show you, here's the code for my custom renderer. I'm not going to walk through it, but it's that much code. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And I'm going to go ahead and attach those up and rebuild. So all I've done is I've sort of changed just a few overrides in the renderer for my menus and tool strips to get a different look and feel. And let's go ahead and bring that main form up again. And you'll see now the application looks a little different, looks a little better, has a different look and feel. You saw how little code that was to actually do something like this. So I've showed you before an office look and feel. This is the exact same menus and toolbars that I showed you before. I've just configured them with a different look and feel. So I've made it highly pluggable. So maybe you don't want Office. Maybe you don't want a system look and feel. Maybe you have your own branding that you want to use. Well, you can go ahead and do that. So a couple other things I want to show in this application. So I've created a little simple shell here. And all it is really a toolbar, a menu bar, and it's got a toolbar on the top, toolbar on the bottom. It's kind of simulating that money type flat look and feel. And then in the middle, it's got a big work area. And based on which icon I click on the top, it just shoves a user control in the middle. And the user control you just looked at was my home type view here. So this is the default user control that's shoved in there when I run the application. So I run it, and you'll see there's sample home page. So I'm going to go ahead and, in my little portal here, I'm going to go ahead and add some content. And I'm going to do that using a new control that we've added called Flow Layout. It's a Flow Layout panel. How many people are familiar with the HTML flow type layout? A couple? Have people used HTML? Good. My screen here is kind of cutting off, so it's difficult for me to see this. I just dropped in a new Flow Layout panel, which is basically the equivalent of the flow layout you get in HTML. And I'm going to dock it top in this area, drag it down a bit. And now I'm going to add a few controls to it. Sorry, I cannot see this at all. I'm jumping over to my laptop. Sorry, follow the bouncing ball. The screen is really washed out over there. So I'm going to go ahead and I've created one other component in here that I'm going to be dropping into this little portal. And I just want to show you it's nothing. Here it is at design time. It's our new tool strip with another custom renderer to give it that nice look and feel that you get in Money at the top. And it's just dock top and a user control. That's all this is right here. And I've added a couple buttons so that when I click on the button, it compresses and expands it. That's all that is. And I'm going to go ahead and add a couple of these to this flow layout panel that I just put in here. And those are up here under, here we go. So I'm going to add one in here, add another one in here. Let's go ahead and add another one in here, and you'll notice that they flow. Add one more in here. So as I shrink them and grow them, I can make them bigger or smaller, and they'll all kind of flow together. And a big flow. Right now they're flowing left to right. And you can specify the flow direction as top to bottom, which I'll do now. Flow direction is left to right now, so top to bottom. So now they're going do-do-do, do-do-do, and I'll go ahead and run this application just so you can get a better idea of what that's doing. So this is one of the new layout controls that we've added. So if you want a nice kind of portal, web-type look to your application, here it is, and as I compress them, they start all flowing back up because it's a nice little flow layout. I can resize it, and as I resize it, in this case, I'm doing multiple columns. It's a nice configurable type layout engine in here. Now, for any portal type application, I'm going to go ahead and delete a few of these. Resize this one. I can go ahead and add content right in here. And for any portal, it's sort of a requirement. You got to at least be able to read email. So I've got an existing, I've got Microsoft Outlook on here. Outlook ships with an ActiveX component that allows you to basically view your inbox, and I've dropped that on here. So we still support, if you got existing ActiveX controls, obviously you can still use them within your application, and that's what I'm dropping in here. So I've selected this inbox control, and I'm going to go ahead and dock it here, if I can select it. There we go. And I'm going to go ahead and dock fill it. And there you see my inbox. Go ahead and run it. So again, this is my real inbox, unfortunately. I'm offline now, so I won't be getting any new emails while we're doing this talk. Go ahead, run the application, and there you have it. Nice little portal app with using some interop right here in our flow layout type arrangement. Well, we just haven't added flow layout. So another thing that they have in HTML is they have table layout. So we also support that table concept of layout. And I've got another view set up. If I run the application here, I've set up, as we run it, I've set up another one of these tabs right now called Orders in Table that I'm going to jump to next and fill it out. But I want to show you how you might set this up to do a kind of table layout that you'd see in HTML. And at the same time, I'm going to show you some of the new things that we've added for data binding. So this is the view or user control that I display when I click on that Orders in Table button. And currently right now it's just empty. And I'm going to go ahead and jump into a little new data feature. And this is our new Add New Data Source wizard. So I want to go ahead and connect to data. So I've clicked on a data, Add New Data Source. And I'm going to go ahead and connect to a database. So if this is a client portal type application, you may want to see information that you've got in a local database, or you may want to see something in some other database. And I'm going to go ahead and connect to everybody's favorite database, Northwind. I'm going to display some customer information. So we're waiting for it to connect here. There we go. Tables, I'm going to select orders. I'm going to click on orders, waiting. There we go. So I've just added that as a data source. And now we have a new data source picker, which will come up in a moment, that allows me to now automatically generate UI for this data. And I'll bring that up. And I'm going to go ahead and drag a few of these things over. There's one. There's another. There's another. Now, a couple things I want to show you about this. So first off, you're going to see some interesting little lines buzzing around there. I'm going to go ahead and drag this. Hopefully everybody can see it over to the side. Okay, see those little green dots, dot, 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 dot. You need your magnifying glass. There's some green dots that are, this is sort of snapping to the edges. Sorry, I can't make them any bigger. But trust me, there are green dots in there. I can make them the distance greater. I'm going to come in here and change the margin. But basically what we've done is we've added some things so that we don't have to have the grid type display when you're laying out controls on a form. I'm going to set the margin to 10 for this control. And so that's another new feature we've added is margin and padding on our controls. And basically that controls, you can see at least now that it snaps further away. So we basically, in the designer, we honor this concept of margin and padding, and that's how we determine how close to put controls next to other controls. Now that's one set of things that we've added to the designer, but another one is you can see these blue snap lines. Here, this is saying a significant edge of a control is lined up with a significant edge of another control. So here, the tops of those controls are lined up, and for those in the front, they can see the green dots are saying also it's within a margin distance away from this other control. But when I'm lining up a text box to a label, chances are I don't want the edges to line up. I really want the text baselines to line up. So you'll notice as I move it up a little bit, I get a nice little red dot that says, or red line, says, hey, the text baselines of these controls are now lined up. So with that knowledge, I can now quickly come through and lay out my form. And you're going to see something else here that I've got a little overlay problem here, but we'll discuss how I can fix that problem. So there, quickly I can go ahead, lay out the form, get it looking nice. Now, one thing I do want to change is I don't like the customer ID, order ID, etc. And typically you'd have to go over to the property grid and change those names. But we've added a new mode in the designer that allows you to directly edit the contents of these on the design surface. So here I just right-clicked on the control, clicked Edit Properties, and I'm taken into what we call in situ mode. I can change any of the text properties. Here I'm going to change the actual text value. So instead of order ID, I can say ID, tab to the next field, customer, tab to the next field, employee, and then go ahead and exit the mode. I can change the text values as well. I can rename my controls this way, so it makes it much easier for you to go through and do things like provide common naming for your controls. Now, so I have laid these out, and that's nice, but there are certain scenarios where this kind of layout, it's great for rad prototyping, but if you're doing something like localizing an app or something where the size of your text actually may grow or shrink, and you want things always laid out in a nice little column type tabular format, that this isn't going to quite work the way you want it to. So let's go ahead and move these down. We'll go ahead and get rid of them. We'll re-add them in a minute. And add a new control we've added called Table Layout Panel. I'm going to come over here and, excuse me, and I want to anchor that to all sides. And a table layout panel is very similar to the table control in HTML. And I'm going to go ahead and add a few rows in here. Add a row, resize a little bit. And now I'm going to redrag over these items from my data source. Notice now they're being laid out. Nice. Let's see if we can find a big named one up here. And there we go, ship postal code with a big label. And you still notice everything's not perfectly aligned the way I want it. And the table layout panel has lots of options that control how things are laid out. In this case, I can change how the columns are laid out. And by default, we lay out in what's called absolute. But I really want the first column to be auto size, meaning size to the basically become the width of the largest item within you. And I want the second one to take up all the space. And we'll do that. And now you notice that the first column is automatically resized. I can also align all the contents within a cell. In this case, I want to align all those right. And I want to take all these. I can click them all. Here we go. Nope. I want to make all the text boxes. Yep. That middle one doesn't want to work for me, so we'll just do the first three. And we'll take these and we want those to grow as I resize. And you still see that it doesn't look quite right. And I've fixed the column styles, but I haven't fixed the row styles. So I'm going to do that next. And the row styles are, how do I want to lay out my rows? Do I want them to be a fixed size? In this case, I want them to be auto size. Grow to the content. Go to the size of the content within the row. And now you see they all auto size correctly the way I would expect. This has got a lot of options, just like in HTML. You can set row spans, you can set column spans. So you see very quickly you can create a nice little view where everything gets laid out. And if the content grows, so for example, if I've localized the order ID and customer ID, go to orders and table here. If I've localized these values and they grow or shrink, the actual column itself, the whole column will grow and shrink to continue to make sure everything that you've got in there is aligned. So let's see, I think one other thing that I do want to show related to some of the stuff that we've done with layout, I'm going to go to one additional view that I've created. I talked about before how we have a web browser control. And so I've created in here a what I'll call a browser view. It's if I run the application and I click on the Browse button, it'll take me to the Browse view, which is currently empty. So I want to show how you might go about actually implementing a browser-type view and take advantage of a couple other new features that we've added. So first thing I'm going to do is add a tool strip. And a tool strip is a big workhorse for us. It can do a lot of things. And I want to simulate the address bar that you've got here on IE. So I've added a tool strip. And you've seen in the past how I've done a custom look and feel. I've done an office look and feel. In this case, I want to just do a standard system look and feel. So I'm going to change the look and feel here to system. And by default, we have a concept called rafting, which means your menu can move all around and be docked all the different sides. I'm going to turn that off. And now I'm going to go ahead and add a few items to this tool strip using the Chrome. And I'm going to add a button. I want to add a text box. So we have a much richer set of controls that you can add in here. And I'm going to add two other buttons just to kind of simulate that IE look and feel. The first one I'll say is address. Should be a label, but button will do. And the text box, I want to make nice and wide, long. So we'll make it 400 wide. And we'll go ahead and add a go button. And finally, we'll add a make home button. And now with that, I'll go ahead and add a web browser control. And you can see what I've done is I've created a, where'd my text box go? I've created a look and feel. Did I enter 4,000? Did no one stop me? 1,400? Okay. Well, that's not what I wanted. Here we go. Well, look at that. Okay, that hopefully is a little better. Let's see what we've got here. There we go. That's what I want. So one thing I want to do with this text box is show you another new capability that we've added, which is autocomplete. If you notice in IE, if you come in here and type HTTP : blah blah, you get this nice little, let's see, there we go. You get some autocomplete. We've actually baked that in now so that you can add that to our text boxes and our combo boxes. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this, set the text box's autocomplete mode to suggest append, which means as I'm typing, it's going to suggest, make suggestions based on what I'm typing. And I'm going to also set it up. I can create my own list of things that I want to autocomplete, but I'm going to go ahead and say, use the system set of URLs to do your autocompletion, which is what I've done here. And another thing I want to do, I see my text box has gotten smaller. It's not behaving. And one other thing I want to do, hello, we'll get there. We'll go the edit items route. Make it 400 again. There we go. And the other thing I want to do is I want to add a key up handler on this so that if I hit enter, it'll go ahead and navigate to the URL. And that's what I've got here. So let's go ahead and add some code real quick. I'll drag it on over. And here's my key up handler. So that means as it's auto-completing, I can just go ahead and type enter, and it'll navigate. It'll take the web browser and say navigate to the text that I've typed in there. One other handler I want to add is one on the web browser. I want to add a navigated handler. Here we go. And this is an event that is called by the web browser anytime I navigate. You may have noticed when you navigate to a site, sometimes you actually get redirected 4 times before you end up on the site you actually really want to go to. This is just so that when I end up, the text that displayed in the URL thing above is actually the correct URL. And I'm going to drag some text in here for that. And the last thing I want to do is I'm going to add a few things for, if you noticed on my portal, I've got some stuff that allows me to go forward and go back. And this is just hooking up the go forward and go back buttons to this.webbrowser1.go_back. So I'm just leveraging the web browser object model, this.webbrowser1.go forward. So I've added a web browser control to here. As I type in this text box here, I'm going to get some autocomplete. If I hit enter, I'm going to navigate to the URL that I typed in. So let's see how that works. And that was on the browse view. So I go in here, hit browse, and it's real web browser control. Let's see, we'll go to, look like harrypotter.com. That's a good one to go to. Given the third movie's coming out. You can see we've got a real web browser control right in here. Skip the intro. We've even got sound if you can hear it. It's a flash site. And I hooked up the back and forward buttons in there. So real quickly, without a lot of code, I just created a web browser control within my portal application. Very simple, very nice, and there really is sound as well. The one last thing I want to do is I want to be able to provide an option that says make whatever the current page that I'm on my home page. And to do that, I'm going to use another new feature that we've added called client configuration. So there may be settings that you have associated with your application that you want to store that you may not want to store in a database. For example, menu or toolbar configurations, or where your menu or toolbars are laid out. Since you can now dock the toolbars, you may want to store that configuration somewhere. Well, we allow you to do that in a configuration file that we sort of manage and maintain for you. And I'm going to go ahead and add a new entry in here to save my home page. Actually, I added one before. It's still in here, so I've got something already that I can now store on a per user basis the current home page. And what I want to do now is when they click that button, I want to take the home page that they're currently on, or the web page they're currently on, and go ahead and make that their home page by storing it in client config. And so this is how I go about actually adding a setting to client config, which means I've added a setting into a configuration file that my application will automatically read on startup. And now I just have to wire up the writing and saving of that value, which is pretty straightforward. What happens when I add an entry into client configuration is a tightly bound wrapper is created so that I can directly access. I called that property home page, and now a type is created for me that I can now directly access that home page. So when you click that Make Home Page button, I take the current URL in the web browser, I take that, shove it into the configuration file, and actually save the configuration file here. And the other thing I need to do is that when this browser first comes up, this is how come it went to my current home page. I need to change this to navigate to the one I just set up, and here I'm just going to go ahead and type it in. And this is that type. This is the wrapper that it's created for me for home page. We'll go ahead and run the app now. We'll go to the Browse View in here. We'll go ahead and select Browse View. We'll go to harrypotter.com again. Skip the intro. This looks like a nice home page. I'm going to go ahead and make it my home page. Now what that just did, I clicked on that button. It wrote the resources into this configuration file that's now associated with my application, and it's stored per user just for me. And now I can go ahead and exit, rerun the application. And now you see that it's now saved the fact that that's my home page, saved in this configuration file. So that's another new feature that we've added in Whidbey. We've made it much more, we've taken an existing feature and made it much more approachable in that case. So that's a quick overview of some of the design time, layout, and configuration stuff that we've added. So two things I want to get to here in my last, how am I doing for time? Last 20 minutes or so. I want to talk about some of the new data stuff that we've added, and I also want to talk about what we've done to make it easier to deploy applications. And once again, I'm just going to go ahead and skip the slide deck and skip into a demonstration as I bring VS back up. So we've done a lot of work to make it easier to bind to data at design time, as well as do things like formatting your data. And one of the biggest things we did is we added a new grid control. And the last view I'm going to configure here is I have this orders view that you see here. Sorry, thank you. There we go. So the last thing I have is a orders view. And the orders view takes you to this, again, blank user control now. And I'm going to show you some of the capabilities we've added with our new, we've added a new data grid control. Has anybody out there used our existing grid control? Grid, some people out there? Good. Anybody have really positive experience with it? A few people? Few, at least a few. So we actually created a new grid view control called the data grid view. And the reason we did that is we looked at the old grid control. We found that it addressed a lot of scenarios, did some things really well, and there's some other things that didn't do as well, and it wasn't as flexible as some people would have liked it to have been. So rather than try to take the existing one and morph these new capabilities on top of it, we decided to create a new one from the ground up that we create that was performant, configurable, all those great things, and the result is this data grid view. So now we have two controls, our old grid view, data grid, and this new one, the data grid view, which I've just dropped on here. And I'm going to go ahead and apply a flat style to it. So I've just auto-formatted it. And I'm going to go ahead and bind it to a data source. And notice again, I drop a grid on, what is it that I'm most likely going to want to do? I'm going to bind it to data. So right off the bat, I drop the grid on. You see our smart task pop up and say, hey, do you want to bind it to data? Sure, I do. And I'm going to go ahead and add a new data source. I'm going to go through the wizard again. At this point in time, I could say, I'll bind it to a database. I'll bind it to a web service. It'll go ahead and create the proxy, and I can bind that way. I can bind it to a business object, which I'm going to show later. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and pick everybody's favorite, Northwind again. And bind to that. And this time I'm going to pick the customers table. Select it. There we go. And you'll notice that my columns will now fill in automatically for me when it comes back. There we go. And again, you know, probably I don't want to see all the columns in the data source. I may. In this case, I don't. I'm going to get rid of a few of them. And I'm also going to add an additional column. And I'm going to add an unbound column just because I want to show off some of the capabilities of the data grid. I'm going to make this frozen. And I'll talk about this unbound column that I'm adding in a minute. And I want to make this frozen as well. Frozen meaning I'm going to have them stick off to the right. So as I scroll the scroll bar, those will stay fixed, kind of like what you see in Excel, for example. Frozen true there. Now, all these columns are bound except for the first one, this flag column, which I will re-add, just so I take you through the experience, make sure I'm clear on it. This is an unbound column. Great. I know I shouldn't have done that. We'll take a slight detour here and discuss some of the command line tools that we have available to quickly restart the project. So here we go. So there's this one bug that, anyway, I've been trying to work around. If you bring up two modal dialogues right after each other, you kind of get in this frozen state. And I didn't do a good enough job there of working around that issue. So that's what you saw. We'll go back to this orders view again. And, well, looks like it was, we're back at square one here, so we'll quickly recreate it. We'll have the data grid view, auto format it with the classic look here. We'll edit the columns, and I got to hook it to a data source, which should still exist. No. Okay, we'll get there quickly. And I won't hit that double dialogue again. Here we go. Select tables, customers. Click once, wait for it, finish. Here we go. Okay, we're back where we were before. And so what I'm going to show is, I want to show really this new capability that we have in the grid, where you can take both bound columns that are directly bound to a data source, and unbound columns. And the unbound column that I'm going to show is, I'm going to go ahead and display an image in there. I believe that's my old one just finally getting around to, no, it's not. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on here real quickly. We'll go ahead and we'll come back to that demo at the end. I don't want to waste time if it's not going to behave the rest of the time here. So I want to go ahead and I want to make sure I show the click once stuff, and I'll come back and finish up with the data demo. So I will take a few minutes and kind of describe what our goals were with click once, which is our new deployment technology. One of the things that we found was an adoption blocker for client applications was that people found it very easy to deploy web applications. You just copy it to a server, anybody hits the link, and then go ahead and basically run the application. In the case of client applications, it wasn't that simple. A lot of times you have to roll it out via SMS, or you burn a CD, and you have to send it out to people. So the result of looking at that effort was a technology called Click Once. How many people have used the app updater component? So this sort of has its roots in that. It grew into this concept, which is Click Once. And I encourage anybody who's interested in Click Once to attend Jamie's talk on Friday morning, because he's going to go into a lot of details about Click Once. It's much more configurable than I have time to stand up here and talk about, which is why it has its own session. But it's extremely powerful. But I want to just kind of give you the general overview of what you can do with it. In a sense, you can take your application, package your whole app up, send it out to a share or a website, and then you can basically deploy your application from that share or from that website. And really the best way to see that is to go ahead and show you. if VS will behave for me here. And I've got an existing deployment project here. Switch screen, thank you. There we go. So rather than just do a hello world application, I want to just show at least a little bit more when I'm doing my click once application. So I'm going to go ahead and add another data source. I know it's risky, but I'm going to add a business object data source now. So here I'm doing something that you couldn't do before with Visual Studio. I'm binding to a business object at design time. So I have a business object called quote. And what this really is this is just more of a sort of a sample app that just has selected movie quotes. And you can use it to select a movie quote and play the quote and see an image. You know, so it's pretty simple. It's more of a non-professional type application. And so I just added a data source for it. And just like you saw before, I can go ahead and drag these items over. And we basically have the quote source. So this would be like the movie it came from. And the actual quote itself is right here. And notice that we've detected that there is an image in there. And binding to the image automatically, we create an image, a picture box for you to bind to. I want to go ahead and make this a little bigger and make this one a little wider. And let's see what else we've got in here. And we've got something I'll call context. So there are a lot of little games you can play with, literally games you can play with sound quotes. Like you play a sound quote and you got to guess what the movie it's from is, or you have to do something like, guess the line before it, kind of a deal. And somebody had this idea that these are all movie quotes that are real common. So I'd show when the last time I heard the quote was. And it's supposed to be funny, and you guys can tell me whether it is or not. I'm just warning you now, it's not my idea. Unless you like it. So a couple things I want to do. First thing is I want to actually load the data. So I bounded design time to really a type, a business object. I didn't bind to an instance of data. And so this way, if you have a web service that returns a type, you can actually bind to it at design time without actually having to go query the web service to get an instance of the data. Here, I've bound to the type at design time, and at runtime, I'm actually going to provide the real data, which is what I'm doing here. The other thing I want to do is this is a new component, Data Navigator, that I think you saw in a previous demo. And I'm going to go ahead and edit the items here. We can get to them. There we go. And I want to remove the last couple items. I'm just going to go ahead and add a new item. How many people have tried to play sound with the previous version of Windows Forms? All right, there's a couple people laughing. I don't know why you'd laugh, unless, of course, it was difficult or impossible to do. We've actually worked on that a little bit. So I have sound associated with this. If I'm going to play a movie clip, I want some sound associated with it. So we'll go ahead and play sound as well. And in order to play sound, I need to drop on my new sound player. And the whole goal of this is just so I can deploy an application. Go figure. So last thing is I'll drop off my little thing here to play the sound, and we'll go ahead and run it. And so this is quotes from anybody fan of Princess Bride, the movie? You know that one? Yeah. Okay, so it's got a few Princess Bride quotes in there that I'm actually compiling now, and it's taking a little bit of time, so I'm just going to go ahead and do a little soft shoe up here. Kindergarten Cop, there's a few quotes in there. It's going to come back. It is compiling. Trust me. This is an app that's written in VB, which has nothing to do with the slowness right now, I assure you. Oh, look at that. I got to rechange the picture box here real quick. I just want to make sure that it gets auto-sized here. Correct size, auto-size. This time it should compile quickly. First time is always a little bit slow. Should be popping up. Do it. Do it. Yeah, I apologize for my my demos. They were working fine before I got in here. I don't. Murphy's Law. So it's coming. It's coming. It's coming. It's going to be worth it, really. It better be worth it. So If not, okay, there you go. So this is like, here you see I can go ahead and play the quote, and I'm not going to exit the app here, but just show you that it actually there's a sound file, a WAV file, and this goes off and has the name of the WAV file that's actually included as part of my project here. And it goes off and grabs the WAV file and goes ahead and plays it. So, can you hear it?
Monsters, chases, escapes, true love, miracles.
So, and then the goal, see here, the last time, well, if you get the idea, see the funny part's supposed to be the last time I heard that was when my sons asked me what I should show at TechEd, was fencing, fighting, get it? It's not funny. We're doing one more. If I don't get any laughs, that's it. You're not, you can guess where this one's from. Let's see.
You were not hired for your brains, you hippopotamic landmass.
I hear that all the time. That's from my last review. Oh, this one's a good one. Last one I'll do, then I'll deploy it.
Brainless, helpless, hopeless.
Last time I presented at TechEd, that was in my feedback. And you know why now. Okay. Really, we want to deploy the app. That's really the goal here. That's just in case something goes wrong. You can say, hey, that was a cool demo. Or maybe not. So I'm going to go ahead. And what I did, take you through it slowly. I clicked an option here that said build. And turns out I did build, which we're waiting for here. So I'll go ahead and describe what's going to happen as I do this. When I select publish, I pick, as part of that process, I pick a URL. Or I could pick a file share. And it'll go off and it'll take my application, any assemblies the application is dependent on. It'll go take all those. In this case, I've got a bunch of WAV files. I've got some image files. And it'll go ahead and take all those, bundle them up, throw them out to the share. It'll then create a web page with basically an installation shim on the web page. There we go. It's actually deploying. I must hit finish. So it's taking all that stuff. It's shoving it up to my share right now. And it's going to create a, there we go. So now, this is the machine that it's just published to. Now anybody can come along. If you're on the internet, I could publish it on the extranet as well. Anybody can come along, hit this web page, and this is what they're going to see. If they have the .NET framework installed, they can directly click on Install Deployment. It's kind of confusing. The name of this application is Deployment. And, or if they don't have the framework, they can click on Install, or they click on the second link. It'll go ahead and bootstrap install the framework. Now, the difference between those two, other than the fact that the second one is installing the framework, is the second one as well requires admin privileges, obviously, to install the framework. The first one, the one I'm going to select, which most users would select, that one doesn't require admin privileges. It will go ahead and install the application locally, just for me, in a non-impactful way. What it does do is it adds an entry, and that's the application now that's run. It's been deployed, and I actually now reinstalled it on my computer via click once. So I went up to the website, clicked install, and this is the version of the application. It's added a link in my start menu called deployment. Obviously, you can change that. And the only other sort of impactful thing that it's done is if you go to Control Panel, Add Remove Programs, you'll see that in here, it's also added an entry in here as well. Now, Click Once gives you all sorts of wonderful options in terms of being able to have updates and force updates and those sorts of things. And so I'm gonna go ahead and show you one of those features, which is I'm gonna make a change to this application. And the one change I'm going to do is show you one last new feature, which is kind of a fun little feature we added to Tooltip, which says we can make balloon tooltips now. I think it's kind of funny. And I'm going to go ahead and add one line of code in here. And so what this does now is that, so I've actually deployed this application at work, and some people thought it was kind of funny, but I thought it'd be even funnier if I had a balloon tooltip. Go figure. So I'm going to go ahead and make that change, and I'm going to go redeploy this project. So now I've gone ahead, I've made a change to the application, and now I'm deploying the application again. Now, I didn't talk about this step right here, but obviously this is all secured, it's signed, in this case, I'm actually doing an update to my application, so it has to be signed with the same key that I gave it before so that no one else can offer updates on my behalf. Go ahead and hit finish, and I'll see if this goes a little quicker than the last one. So it's going to do the same thing. It's going to take my application, everything associated with my application. So in this case, it's going to take all the WAV files, the image files. If I have other dependent assemblies, it's going to go ahead and grab those as well, take them up to the server, and install sort of a side-by-side version now. I had a previous version, version 1.0, and now I have this new version, version 1.1. And as part of this deployment, I could do things like specify this is a required update. In this case, I haven't said it's a required update. I can give it a new version number. There's a lot of options I can do with deployment, and those are the kind of things that Jamie will talk about or go into more details about on Friday. There's also, you notice when I installed, I get a prompt. And the prompt that I got is something, too, where you can set up trusted authority so you don't get the prompt when you actually install the application. And hopefully this is going to come back here in a minute and redeploy the application. I'm not sure why it's taking so long. I assure you, it's unfortunate I did the last demo using VB because I think it's probably my box has been up too long, and it has nothing to do with, obviously, Visual Basic. So here we go. It's finished deploying. There we go. So rather than install it that way, I'm going to go ahead through the Start menu this time. And I'm going to be just like a normal user. I'm going to rerun my application again. And as I run it, I'll be prompted and say, hey, guess what? A newer version is available. Do you want to download it now? And again, this is where I can come in. Yeah. So this is where I can come in and actually force the install. In this case, it's optional. It says they can do it or they can't do it. Or they can opt into it. But I could actually force an update on my users in this case. I could also force the check in the background. Again, the kind of things that Jamie will go about in great detail. So now I've gone ahead and updated it. And let's go ahead and see, play a quote.
Did I make it clear that your job is at stake?
And yeah, if you guess, this is what my boss told me before I left for TechEd. But you see the nice little, tooltip popping up. But turns out, I think it's a little obnoxious. So I'd like to get rid of that last version. I don't like the bubble tooltip. So we have integration with add remove programs. And I can come in here, click remove, and it says, hey, do you want to basically remove everything, or do you just want to roll back one version? Well, I just want to roll back one version. And now I'll go ahead, rerun the application. And now I can, let's go to the end here. It's something you haven't seen, maybe a kindergarten. Nope, not that one. There we go.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them
see,
answered immediately.
The bubble tooltip's not coming out now. This is, passing through a gate check, Anyway, the full source of this will be made available online somewhere because I'm sure you're all going to want it. Anyway, so I find this actually rather annoying, so I want to just get rid of it. So I'm going to go ahead and hit remove, and now all trace of the application. I was in add remove programs, just said now completely remove, and you see it's been completely removed off my box so that it's actually, when I say completely removed, it's actually still cached locally, so that if I try to reinstall it, it's a little quicker to reinstall it again. But basically, the footprint, as far as I can tell as a user, has been removed from my system. So with that, I think I've got a few minutes. I'm going to go back and show you that data demo. Trust me, it's going to work this time. We've done a lot of work with our new data grid view control, and I'd really just like to show a couple of those features. And go back to the portal sample. And click on the orders view again, and we'll see if we can get this guy working. Add the data grid view again, and go through the formatting. And the data source, add the new one. And again, if I want to bind to a web service, one of the new things we've done that I'm not showing here is the proxies that we have for web services will now generate properties rather than fields. It's been something that has caused people pain in the past because it doesn't work that well. It actually doesn't work. Fields don't work with data binding. whereas now they're generating proxies, so it does work with data binding. Let's go finish. And we'll see what we get here. That's encouraging good. There we go. It's looking better. And I want to add the, I'm going to make this column, give it a width. And I want to make it frozen. And then I'm going to add a unbound column. And the trick is not to bring up this dialog again. And with that unbound column, I'm going to move it to the first item, make it 80 high, and I'm going to set up an option for how I want to display the image itself. Let's see, oh, I did it again, didn't I? That's it. We're just going to run the demo. I'm supposed to be an image in there, but I can't go back in that dialog or else you guys will... Nope, it's okay. So I want to show a couple capabilities that we've added in here. First, I'm going to go ahead and run it and just show you the frozen rows that we have now. As you can see, I got nice little frozen rows in here. I've got alternating column styles. I've got some nice little selection from the auto formatting. So this is all our new grid control. And one of the things about the new grid control is it's designed to be extremely performant. And so I want to show you what we've done to do that by setting it up to be the grid in virtual mode. And what virtual mode does is it says anytime you display a cell, in this case an unbound cell, which my flag column is unbound, meaning it's not bound to a column in the underlying data source. It's just sitting there hanging. That's why when I run this app, I don't get any data for it. I want to be able to fill that column, and I could do this for my whole grid, but I want to be able to fill it just when that cell or column is displayed, or just when that cell is displayed. So there's an event that I can now handle called cell value needed. And as I said, this thing is highly configurable, which is why you see all these events on it. And I just passed it cell value needed. And in this case, we'll say e dot, let's see, we'll drag over some code in here. And rather than display my image, we're just going to display a simple string to kind of demonstrate the hello world. And so what I've done now is as that unbound column gets displayed, anytime, go to this view. Now you see they all say hello world, but you can't really tell what's going on because it just happens so quick. So I'm going to go ahead and put a little force delay in here so that you can get a better idea of what's really going on here. And we'll do system.threading.thread.sleep. Didn't think you were going to see that today, did you? So what this is saying now is that I got this unbound column, and I'm going to simulate a delay. Now it says, hey, when I go grab my data, there's latency associated with grabbing my data. So rather than me having to grab all my data and shove it in the grid at once, I only have to grab my data when it becomes displayed. And I'm going to actually chop this down. That'll be fine. So now anytime it goes to fill one of those cells, it's going to sleep for 300 milliseconds. So now you can see this latency. So as we do this, see now they're chunk, 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 chunk. And when we get to the end, as soon as we filled up that first row, bam, my UI is responsive now. Because now all I've just done is grab the data only when I need to grab the data. So if I go down one item at a time, I get this event that says, hey, can you give me another row to fill? And I fill it. If I go down a page at a time, now you see this capability again where we just sort of chop on through. So we've built in this kind of virtual mode in here to make it easier to deal in paging scenarios where you know that your data is going to be slow. So it's just one of the things we've done in this grid view to make it easier to deal with those sorts of situations. And I think with that, my time, what is it, 3:03? Is that my hour? Does anybody know? I've got more I can show. Hour and 15 minutes? Okay, great. So one other thing I want to show. Another thing you may not have expected to see today. Async programming. How many people have done async programming? Oh, come on, not that many, really? So, anybody find it easy? Wait, some guy raised his hand. It's not easy, actually. So, how many people know what RSS is? Really? Asked that a year ago. I don't think that many people would have raised their hand. So, RSS is something I'm going to use in this demo. Think of it sort of like a sort of standard way to get data from over HTTP, for example. So WindowsForms.net, for example, has what's called RSS feeds, and a lot of sites do now, where you can just get a certain set of data from that site, but you don't have to call a web service to do it. You can just go ping basically an RSS page, if you will. And what I've got here is I've got a RSS aggregator. And what it goes out and does, it goes in and reads some feeds from Amazon and elsewhere. And I actually clicked on the link, and it's going through, and it's grabbing all this RSS data from all these different places. Well, each one of those is going out and doing a network request and saying, give me the data, and it's subject to how slow my connection is. And we're sitting there waiting for this to pop up. So we waited all that time for me to go out and grab data from WindowsForms.net, Amazon.com, Reuters, the Seattle PI, all these different things here. Any portal, of course, needs to be able to aggregate data. Problem is when I clicked on that page, the UI was just frozen. It was non-responsive because I was sitting there waiting for that data to come over. So my UI was basically blocked. My application was blocked. What I really need is I need a way to go out and grab that data in the background. And after I've got the data, so my application can be free to go off and execute its merry way. But in the background, I'm going out and grabbing the data. And once I've got all the data, then I can update the UI. And so we've added something to make that easier to do. And give you a quick demo of that. So I've got a component in here called RSS View. This was that thing you saw before. And if we go look at the code for it, that little aggregator I had was a bunch of these. And let's look at the code for it. And you see here's the core code. And what it does is really the meat of it is right here. Those two lines. First line, go out and grab the data. Second line, bind the data to the UI. Well, it's the first line, go out and grab the data. What happens is when I go out and grab the data, I'm waiting. My code's sitting there executing. When it hits that line, it's going to wait. It's that actual RSS feed with the URL that actually goes out, does a web request, goes out, grabs the data, waits for the web request to return. When the web request returns, it takes the data, and then it returns it in this feed object. But if that connection's slow, I'm going to sit there and block on that call. And that's what you're seeing in my application. You're seeing me block on however many of those RSS feeds I had. 7 of them are all going in parallel, hitting this line, and they're all blocking on it. So I'm waiting 7 times for that to execute, and my UI is frozen. So let's see if there's a quick little way to solve this. And I'm going to use a new component we've added called the background worker. Double-click on it. And it's an event-based model. And I'll kind of describe it. It's actually going to be pretty simple for me to set up. I'm going to take that call that was causing me all that angst, and I'm going to copy down into this background worker do work. And then I'm going to go hook 1 second event on here, which is run worker completed. And I'm going to take my binding code, and I'm going to get rid of that, and I put it in here. And one last thing I need to do, and that is go ahead and get this whole thing to start, which is by calling this .backgroundWorker.run worker async. So I'll explain what I just did. That's it. I'm actually all async now. And what happened? Yes. And I'll run it in a second and prove it. So what I did is I added this first line of code, which calls this background worker run worker async. The background worker is this component right here. And what that does is when I call this right here, behind the scenes, a worker thread is spun up. For those people who know what threads are, basically some background worker, a little hamster jumps on a cage. Does that help? And the little hamster is given a task. It says, hey, go out and get this data for me. And he goes out there, and it's working in the background. And that's what this event right here is. This event happens on some other thread. Now, the trick about this other thread is you can't touch the UI on it. For those people who are familiar with UI programming, you probably know that. But this is going out and saying, go out and do whatever you need to do with the data. I'm going to go out and I'm going to get another thread for you, and I'll go out and do that, but your UI is free and running and going off on its merry way. Automatically, when this guy returns, so this is going to block until he gets the data. When it returns, automatically, it's going to call this event on the background worker. And guess what? It calls that event back on the UI thread. So it says, hey, I'm done. I'm back on the UI thread. I've got the data, ready to go off and party. And it says, OK, great. So what it's just done is I run it. Hey, someone just signed in. And we'll go off. And now watch. Pops up right away. And now we see these slowly pop in. So now my UI is not blocked. Very responsive. I hit refresh. It does the same thing. So it goes off, grabs it. I can actually go ahead and we'll do it again. I can actually go ahead and exit the app if I wanted to at this point in time. It's all running now in the background. So we've just provided this really easy mechanism for you at design time to be able to do async type programming. And with that, that's the end of my demonstration. So I think I got about 5 minutes left. Question? Oh, so there's a question about, I do want to show this. I think this is your question. The grid got me so flustered, I forgot to show this capability. So I need to take that out. OK, so you want to be able to do this? Hello? Hello? Oh. Yeah, I am sleeping. So you want to be able to do that in design time? I see. Yes. So the question is, can at design time you actually change the column styles or change the column widths directly on the design surface? I assume you want to be able to do that, is why you're asking. Well, it's interesting that you say that because we just had this discussion last week about whether or not we should. It's not that we don't want to do it. It's we do want to do it. It's whether or not it's important enough at this point in the product cycle to do. And it sounds like the feedback you're telling me is you'd like to see that. What? Does anybody want to see my dragging the columns around? Oh. Doesn't matter. You're going to see it anyway. Go ahead. Ask questions. I'm going to show it. Go ahead. Will the background worker work in? So the question is will it be available for ASP.NET? And the answer is it yes. So the background worker is much more complex than what I just described. There's actually a pattern associated with it in terms of we have what's called an async operations manager. And the async operation manager is basically something that is plugged in to different environments. So in Windows Forms, how do we basically synchronize these background calls? And we do it on a message pump. But that makes sense in a Windows Forms environment, but it doesn't make sense to synchronize in an ASP.NET environment using message pumps. So we have this sort of pluggable operations manager that different environments support so that we can do this same thing in ASP.NET. The Indigo folks will be supporting it, for example. So it is going to be available elsewhere. And what have I done here? Other questions? Yeah, something about my application. It's still running. Thank you. Thank you. I took that out. That's it. This demo's there. It's not running anymore. OK. Other questions? Right here? The question is, what's the minimum OS will support with the new framework? I'd hate to misquote it. Anybody in here? I tell you what. Give me your business card. I can get it in 2 minutes. I don't have it memorized. So let's see if I can do the drag now. There we go. That's what I wanted to show. See how I can automatically reorder columns at runtime by just dragging them around. Did you see that company name? Click. Alt. It's actually Alt, click, drag. Whoa. It worked the first time. So it's just a new thing that we didn't have on our old grid that you can now drag the columns around. So question? When will Windows Forms 2.0 be available? So the question is, when will this be available? Be available when Visual Studio 2005 ships? which would be in 2005. I don't know any more than that. I know we're going to ship in 2005. We're targeting whatever first half of 2005, but we ship it when the quality was ready to be shipped. Is it going to be part of the .NET framework? So Windows Forms is part of the .NET framework. Everything you just saw will be shipped as part of the framework, as part of the redist, except for the design time features. Anything I did in the IDE, those are part of Visual Studio. But all the runtime, anytime I ran an application, the capabilities you saw, tooltip, our tool strips and menu strips and new grid view, that's all part of the runtime. So everything you need to run the application is part of the framework. The stuff that you do to actually design and build the application, all that's part of Visual Studio. Other questions? So the question is, have we made it easier to update the UI or pass information back? So again, I didn't show all the capabilities of the background worker, but it actually has a way to pass in progress information or status information back to the UI thread, and it marshals it back for you. So you can do exactly that. You can show a progress bar that chunks along. Question? What is the question? Will it save that information? So we don't. Along the lines of that other question I asked about resizing, that was something we just sat down 2 weeks ago and discussed whether or not at this point in the product we want to actually add that capability. We're still debating it, but as it stands now, we have a mechanism to do that through our configuration files, but we just don't automatically persist those settings in the configuration file. It's easy enough to do it, and at a minimum we'll provide a sample that shows how to do that. It's whether or not we're actually going to make it by default work that way so that we automatically save it to configuration files. We do that for our menu strips, menu bars and toolbars. So if you move those around, you save a setting on them that says automatically persist the settings, and we automatically save them to a configuration file for you. Question? Yes, the question is what you saw here today included on the CD that you've got for 2005, and yes, it is. I believe it does. So, question? You can set them up per application and per user. I happen to do them in here per user, but you can create application-wide settings as well. I didn't talk a lot about the provider model, but we have a whole provider model for that. So if you want to, we basically have a couple different providers that we support, but if you want to write your own so that you save the settings into the cloud, you can do that. It's a very pluggable model. Like, it's worth a whole talk. By default, it's local in your local settings, somewhere in your local Hive. It's not an INI file, it's an XML file. So this one goes to 11. So, question? So the question is, do you still incur the same security limitations with click once deployment? There's a talk on Friday with Jamie, and he really is the ideal person to answer that. But there's a whole security infrastructure associated with click once and how it integrates with the basically secure execution environment that the framework provides. And Jamie is the best person to talk to about that. He should be available in the Cabana. If you go there, look for Jamie Cool and or ask, and someone will be able to direct you to him. So, question? So the question is there tie-ins to install Shield? That's something that we've heard a lot of. There isn't now. Jamie's a good person to ask about what our current thinking is related to that. But we've heard those sort of comments come up from people. And Jamie's been thinking about what we can do in that space. But to my knowledge, there's no plan now of how we're going to integrate that. But again, Jamie's the best person to ask about that. Question back there? The question is, can you put a user control in an unbound column in the data grid? So our grids it's much easier in these grids to host your own controls. So it's not a no-code scenario, I guess is what I'm saying. You can do exactly what you described. It just isn't something that we support out of the box. It's pretty easy with the new grid control to create your own columns that support what you're talking about. One of the things you do incur with that sort of a model, repeater type model, is user controls take H-winds, and based on what box you're on, you can run into H-wind resources. So we didn't want to do things to really encourage people to, trample a lot of resources if they're running on down-level platforms. Other questions? Go ahead. Jamie's last name, Cool. Jamie Cool. Jamie Cool, that's his last name. With a C. C, it's not a joke. His last name is Cool. And he'll take one joke on his last name, and then after that, you're cut off. He may be here. He's probably already left by now. Go ahead. I will post all my stuff. Make sure that it gets on the conference DVD that's sent out after the fact. So, yeah. So the questions about MVC. So the PAG guys, I don't know if you're familiar with what PAG's been producing, but they produced sort of an MVC thing with Windows Forms or PAT. Yeah. So we've kind of been delegating that to that team versus baking anything specifically into Windows Forms for MVC. As much as we have a few Smalltalk PMs on our team who I think are a little more ambitious in that space. Go ahead. Excuse me. Any support for pivot tables? We don't provide any pivot table support. We do provide, you can obviously interoperate with Excel. I don't know if you've seen the Trinity stuff, VSTO, Visual Studio Tools for Office, but they have a great integration model with Windows Forms and with the .NET framework, so that you can do those sort of capabilities in a Windows Forms type application. Excuse me? If you go downstairs into the pavilion, look for the VSTO booth, and they'll tell you about the Office integration story with the framework. Yeah, go ahead. No, the question is about the data grid view control. If it's read-only, no, it's read-write, you do whatever. Yeah. In that case, I might have set it up to be read-only. But no, you can read, write. You can set individual cells or columns to be read-only. It's almost too configurable. Yes, there's one thing it doesn't do, and that's it doesn't do hierarchy. Yeah, other than that, we designed to be performant. It does rectangular data very well, very fast, and it's very configurable. And I think I have to get out of here.